You know what they say about curiosity and cats. But nobody ever mentions what happens when you're a human janitor on an alien research station, and you see a sign that says "Do not touch." Spoiler alert, you touch it anyway. My name's Jake Murphy, and I'm what the Galactic Research Station Omega-7 generously calls a sanitation specialist, which is a fancy way of saying I mop floors and unclog toilets for a bunch of pretentious alien scientists who think humans are basically evolved monkeys with opposable thumbs. They're not entirely wrong, but still. The station's run by these self-important jerks who treat us humans like we're lucky to be here. Dr. Quilm, this purple blob with too many eyes, constantly reminds us that humans only got space travel because we stumbled into it like drunken toddlers. Professor Vextron, who looks like a praying mantis had a baby with a calculator, loves to lecture about how human logic is charmingly primitive. Real winners, these guys. Anyway, I'm doing my usual rounds in sub-level 7, which is basically where they keep all the weird stuff they don't want to think about. You know, the kind of place where normal people would turn around and go get coffee instead. But I'm not normal people, I'm Jake Murphy, and Jake Murphy has a PhD in bad decisions. That's when I spotted it. A door marked authorized personnel only, do not touch, seriously, we mean it this time. The "this time" part was what really sold me. You don't add "this time" unless previous people have definitely touched the thing you're not supposed to touch. So naturally I touched it. The door hissed open, revealing a chamber that looked like something out of a sci-fi movie, which is ironic considering I was literally living in a sci-fi movie at this point. The room was all crystalline walls and glowing blue lights. Very dramatic. We spent our entire special effects budget on this one scene. And there, in the center of it all, was a block of ice. Not just any ice, mind you. This was the kind of ice that sparkled like it had been personally blessed by the gods of good cinematography. And inside that ice was a woman. Not just any woman, either. This was the kind of woman who could probably bench press a small moon and look gorgeous doing it. She had this whole ancient warrior princess thing going on, complete with what looked like military gear that had been frozen with her. Her hair was dark, her features were sharp, and even unconscious and frozen solid, she looked like she could kick my butt without breaking a sweat. There was a nameplate at the base of the ice block, written in what looked like ancient human script. I'm not exactly a scholar, but I could make out enough to read. Commander Zara Voss. Commander Zara Voss, I said out loud, because apparently I talk to frozen people now. That's a hell of a name for someone taking the world's longest nap. That's when her eyes opened. Now, I've had some weird moments in my life. There was the time I accidentally programmed the coffee machine to speak only in ancient Klingon. There was the incident with the space hamster and the gravity generator. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for the moment when a woman who'd been frozen for 3,000 years suddenly looked directly at me and said, "Finally." Her voice was rusty, like she'd been gargling with sand for a few centuries, but it was definitely human. The ice around her started to crack and melt, which was either really good news or really bad news, depending on your perspective. I said, because I'm eloquent like that. "Hi there. I'm Jake. I'm not sure what I am right now, actually." She stepped out of what was left of the ice block, water dripping off her like she was auditioning for the world's most intimidating shampoo commercial. Up close, she was even more impressive, tall, muscular, with the kind of presence that made you want to stand up straighter and maybe apologize for existing. "You called my name," she said, stretching muscles that had been frozen for millennia. "I have been waiting for the one who would call my name." "I literally just read it off the nameplate," I pointed out. "I mean, I'm flattered, but I'm pretty sure this is just a coincidence." That's when the alarms started blaring, because of course they did. Dr. Quilm came slithering in, all his eyes bulging in panic. "Murphy, what have you done? The containment field is compromised. We have protocols for this." "Protocols?" Zara looked at the purple blob with something between amusement and contempt. "What manner of creature are you?" "I am Dr. Quilm, head of xenobiology, and you are in violation of about 17 different safety regulations. He was practically vibrating with indignation. Professor Vextron, we need a full decontamination team. Professor Vextron skittered in, looking like he was about to have a mechanical breakdown. The subject has been unresponsive for 3,000 years. Our most advanced revival techniques failed. Then, how did a human janitor succeed where our science could not? Maybe you should have tried reading the nameplate, I suggested helpfully. Zara looked around the room with the expression of someone who was rapidly losing faith in the universe. These are the beings who found me, these administrators? Hey, I found you, I corrected. They just put up the do not touch sign. Ah. Her expression softened slightly, your warrior's curiosity. I should have known. Warrior. Dr. Quillen's eyes were practically popping out of his head. Murphy is a sanitation specialist. He cleans toilets. Everyone's got to start somewhere, I said. Zara turned to me with something that might have been respect. You called my name when all others failed. Tell me, Jake Murphy who cleans toilets, what year is this? Galactic Standard Calendar Year 4847. Professor Vextron rattled off, though I fail to see how that's relevant to our current contamination crisis. 3,000 years, Zara murmured. I slept for 3,000 years, waiting for the one who would awaken me when humanity needed me most. Humanity needs you most. Dr. Quillen was practically frothing now. Humanity is a barely spacefaring species that we allow to work in our facilities out of pity. That's when Zara did something that changed everything. She moved. Not just moved, but moved in a way that made it clear she was built for violence. One moment she was standing there looking thoughtful. The next moment she had somehow acquired Professor Vextron's security button and was holding it like she'd been born with it in her hand. Pity, she asked, her voice carrying the kind of quiet menace that made everyone in the room suddenly remember they had other places to be. Now see here, Dr. Quillen started to say, but Zara cut him off. I am Commander Zara Voss of the Terran Defense Corps, last of the Void Walkers, defender of the Outer Rim. I was genetically enhanced, cybernetically augmented, and trained in 17 different forms of combat before I was 25 years old. I have personally killed more enemies than your entire species has catalogued stars. She smiled. And it wasn't a nice smile. Would you like to repeat that comment about pity? Dr. Quillen made a sound like air escaping from a very nervous balloon. I like her, I said to no one in particular. You know how sometimes you're having a perfectly normal day, and then suddenly you're caught between an ancient super soldier and a bunch of panicking aliens? No? Just me? Well, let me tell you, it's not as fun as it sounds. The situation was getting more awkward by the minute when the station's emergency klaxons decided to join the party. These weren't the gentle please don't touch the radioactive materials alarms. These were the everyone is about to die horribly alarms. All personnel report to emergency stations, came the announcement. Long-range sensors have detected multiple unknown vessels approaching at high speed. This is not a drill. Dr. Quillen's eyes went wide. Unknown vessels, but our territory is clearly marked. No one would dare approach without proper authorization. Zara's expression changed from mildly amused to deadly serious. Show me the sensor readings. Now. I hardly think a primitive human needs to see classified, Professor Vextron started to say, but Zara's look made him trail off. Trust me, I said. When the scary lady with the military training asks to see something, you show her. I've seen enough movies to know how this goes. The display screen flickered to life, showing a formation of ships that looked like someone had taken a nightmare and decided to make it fly through space. They were all angles and dark metal, with the kind of design that screamed we eat civilizations for breakfast. Zara went pale. No, it cannot be. They were supposed to be dormant for another millennium at least. You know what those are? I asked. The Devourers. Her voice was barely a whisper. Self-replicating machine intelligences that consume entire star systems. They're why I was put in cryosleep in the first place. Dr. Quillen was doing his best impression of a deflating balloon. Machine intelligences? Impossible. Our scanners would have detected them centuries ago. Your scanners wouldn't detect a devourer ship if it was parked in your living room, Zara said flatly. They exist partially outside normal space-time. That's why they're so hard to fight. Gah. Well, surely our advanced defensive systems can handle a few rogue machines, Professor Vextron said, puffing himself up. We have the finest military technology in the galaxy. The lights went out. When the emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in red light, Zara was already moving. They're here. How many people are on this station? Approximately 12,000, Dr. Quilm squeaked. Evacuation protocols? Well, we have procedures, but they've never been tested in an actual emergency. And of course they haven't. Zara looked at me. Jake, I need you to listen carefully. The Devourers don't just destroy civilizations. They learn from them. They've been studying this galaxy for 3,000 years, waiting for the right moment to strike. And that moment is now? Apparently. She was checking the security baton like she was planning to use it against space-faring death machines. I was part of the last human military unit that fought them. We managed to put them in dormancy, but we knew they'd be back. And you were supposed to wake up and stop them. We were supposed to wake up when humanity was ready to fight them again. Listen, we need to go. She looked around at the panicking aliens. This is not what I expected to find. Another announcement crackled over the intercom. All defensive systems have failed. Repeat, all defensive systems have failed. The enemy is boarding the station. They're already here. Professor Vextron's voice went up several octaves. Devourers don't mess around, Zara said. They don't negotiate, they don't take prisoners, and they definitely don't fill out the proper forms before they destroy you. So what do we do? I asked. We need to get to the old human colony ship in the Kepler graveyard, she said. There's a weapons cache there that can stop them. The Kepler graveyard is a restricted zone, Dr. Quilm protested. It's been sealed off for centuries. Because it's where humanity stored its most dangerous weapons, Zara explained. The kind of weapons that can hurt things that exist outside normal space-time. And you need me because... The weapons are genetically locked to pure human DNA, she said. And something tells me you're the most human person I'm going to find on this station. I looked around at the chaos, the panicking aliens, and the ancient warrior woman who was looking at me like I was her only hope. Well, I said, I guess it beats cleaning toilets. Stealing a ship from a space station under attack by cosmic horror machines is surprisingly easier than you'd think. Mainly because everyone else is too busy screaming and running in circles to notice the janitor and the ancient super soldier walking calmly toward the hangar bay. So, I said as we made our way through corridors filled with panicking aliens, when you say genetically locked to pure human DNA, you're not talking about some kind of weird space racism, right? Zara actually smiled at that. No, Jake, it's about compatibility with human neural patterns. Listen, the weapons we built were designed to work with human intuition and creativity, traits that most other species consider flaws. Great. So I'm qualified because I'm flawed. You're qualified because you're human, she corrected. And right now, that's exactly what the galaxy needs. We reached the hangar bay, where Dr. Quilm's personal yacht was conveniently waiting. It was one of those sleek, overpowered vessels that screamed, I have more money than sense. Perfect for our needs. Do you know how to fly this thing? I asked as we climbed aboard. I've been flying ships since before your species discovered fire, Zara said, then paused. Wait, no, that's not right. I've been flying ships since before your species discovered warp drive. I keep forgetting how long I was asleep. The ship lifted off smoothly, and soon we were cruising through space toward the Kepler graveyard. Behind us, the research station was under full assault, but Zara's flying skills got us out of there before the Devourers could lock onto us. Tell me about the old days, I said as we settled in for the journey. What were humans like when you were young? Zara's expression grew distant. Fierce, proud. We were the galaxy's premier military force, you know. Other species would hire human mercenaries because we were the only ones crazy enough to fight things that couldn't be reasoned with. What happened? Peace, she said simply. After we defeated the Devourers the first time, humanity got comfortable. We stopped training warriors, stopped building weapons, stopped preparing for the next threat. We became soft. Hey now, I'm not soft, I protested. I'm fluffy. I got a laugh out of her. You called my name, Jake. After 3,000 years of alien scientists trying to wake me with their advanced techniques, you walked up and simply said my name. That tells me something about human nature that I'd forgotten. What's that? Sometimes the simplest approach is the best approach. We dropped out of warp at the edge of the Kepler graveyard, and I got my first look at humanity's dark secret. The graveyard was filled with derelict ships, massive colony vessels that had been abandoned centuries ago. They drifted through space like metal ghosts, reminders of a more ambitious time. There, Zara pointed to the largest ship, the Prometheus. That's where we stored the emergency weapons. As we docked with the ancient vessel, I couldn't help but notice the warning signs posted all over the hull. Danger, restricted access, authorized personnel only, and my personal favorite, if you can read this, you're about to make a really bad decision. I'm starting to see a pattern in my life, I muttered. The Prometheus was a maze of corridors and chambers, most of them sealed off or marked with warnings that would make a safety inspector weep. Zara led the way with the confidence of someone who'd been here before, navigating past traps that would have killed me 17 different ways. The weapons cache is at the heart of the ship, she explained as we walked. But getting there requires solving puzzles that are designed to test human thinking. What kind of puzzles? The kind that require you to think illogically. Great. My whole life was preparation for this moment. The first puzzle was a room full of symbols that made no sense. Alien mathematics, quantum equations, and what looked like someone's grocery list written in 17 different languages. There was a console in the center with a single question: what is the answer? I stared at it for about 30 seconds, then walked over and typed 42. The door opened. How did you know that? Zara asked. Lucky guess, I said. Plus it's always 42. Haven't you read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? I was frozen before that was written. You've missed a lot. The second puzzle was even weirder. It was a room filled with mirrors, and each mirror showed a different reflection. Some showed me as an alien, some showed me as a robot, and one showed me as what appeared to be a potted plant. The question this time was, which reflection is real? I walked up to the mirror that showed me exactly as I was, complete with my janitor's uniform and my "I'd rather be fishing" expression. This one, I said, pressing my hand against it. Nothing happened. Try again, Zara suggested. I thought about it for a moment, then walked over to the mirror that showed me as a potted plant and pressed my hand against it. The door opened. I don't get it, Zara said. I'm a janitor on a space station, I explained. Most days I might as well be a potted plant for all the attention anyone pays me. The real me is whatever I choose to be. She looked at me with something that might have been respect. You know, Jake, I think I'm starting to understand why you were the one who woke me up. Oh, seeing you named day. The weapons cache was everything Zara had promised and more. Rows upon rows of devices that looked like they'd been designed by someone who had a really unhealthy relationship with the laws of physics. There were guns that shot holes in reality, bombs that exploded backwards through time, and something that looked like a tennis racket but was labeled Dimensional Flux Redistributor, do not point at self. These are the weapons that defeated the Devourers, I asked, picking up what appeared to be a flashlight with too many buttons. That's a reality anchor, Zara said, gently taking it from me. It keeps things that exist in multiple dimensions locked into our space-time. Very useful against enemies that phase in and out of existence. And very dangerous if you accidentally point it at yourself. Let's just say there's a reason it comes with a warning label. We loaded up the ship with everything we could carry. then headed back toward the research station. The journey gave us time to plan our attack, which mainly consisted of Zara explaining complicated military tactics while I nodded and tried to look like I understood what she was talking about. "The key is to use their own adaptability against them," she said. "Errors learn from every encounter, but they expect logical responses. Human tactics work because they're inherently illogical." "So you're saying my complete lack of military training is actually an advantage?" "I'm saying your human instincts are exactly what we need. We dropped out of warp to find the research station under siege. The Devourers had surrounded it with their nightmare ships, and from the looks of things, they were slowly tearing it apart. The station's defensive systems were firing desperately, but their weapons were passing right through the enemy ships. Their phase shifted," Zara explained, "existing just enough outside our reality to avoid most weapons." "But not these weapons," I said, patting the reality anchor I'd strapped to my chest. "Not these weapons," she confirmed. What followed was the most terrifying and exhilarating experience of my life. Zara took the controls while I operated the weapons systems, and together we dove into the middle of the Devourer fleet like we had a death wish and the reflexes to back it up. The ancient human weapons worked exactly as advertised. Every shot from the reality anchors forced the Devourer ships back into normal space-time, where they became vulnerable to conventional weapons. I'd fire, Zara would maneuver, and the station's defensive systems would finish the job. "Jake, incoming on your 6. Zara called out. I spun the weapon around and fired without thinking, trusting my instincts rather than trying to calculate the shot. The beam caught the Devourer ship just as it was trying to phase out, trapping it in normal space long enough for the station's railguns to tear it apart. "Nice shot," Zara said. "How did you know where to aim?" "I didn't," I admitted. "I just pointed it where it felt right. That's what I mean about human instincts. You don't think, you just act. We were winning, but barely. For every Devourer ship we destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. The station was holding, but just barely, and our weapons were starting to run low on power. That's when I had an idea. A really, really stupid idea." "Zara, what happens if we overload one of these reality anchors?" "It would create a massive disruption in local space-time," she said, "probably tear a hole in reality itself. And that would affect the Devourers how?" "It would either destroy them all or destroy us all," she said, "possibly both." Bay 8th. I liked those odds. "Jake, that's insane." "I'm a human janitor who just helped save a space station from cosmic horror machines using weapons that shouldn't exist," I pointed out. "Insane is kind of my thing now." She looked at me for a long moment, then smiled. "You know what? You're absolutely right. Let's tear a hole in reality." We rigged the largest reality anchor to overload, set it for a 30-second delay, and launched it directly into the middle of the Devourer fleet. Then we got as far away as possible and waited. The explosion was unlike anything I'd ever seen. It wasn't just light and sound. It was like reality itself was having a nervous breakdown. The Devourer ships were caught in the blast, their phase-shifting abilities useless against an attack that was literally rewriting the laws of physics around them. When the light faded, the Devourer fleet was gone, not destroyed, not defeated, but gone, like they'd never existed in the first place. "Well," I said, looking at the empty space where our enemies had been, "that was either the smartest thing I've ever done or the stupidest." "With humans," Zara said, "it's usually both." The aftermath of our victory was about what you'd expect from a bunch of alien scientists who'd just watched a janitor save their lives using weapons that technically shouldn't exist. There was a lot of paperwork, a lot of meetings, and a lot of very uncomfortable conversations about how exactly this had happened. Dr. Quillen was the first to approach us after the decontamination teams had finished their work. All his eyes were focused on me with something that might have been respect, which was new and frankly a little unsettling. "Murphy," he said, "I owe you an apology. It appears that we may have underestimated human capabilities." "Just a bit," I said. "But hey, no hard feelings. We all make mistakes. The Galactic Council has been informed of your actions. Professor Vextron added, looking like he was having trouble processing the words. They're requesting a full report on human military potential. Military potential? I laughed. I'm a janitor who got lucky. No, Zara said firmly. You're a human who did what humans do best. You saw an impossible situation and found a way to make it work. Word spread fast through the galaxy. Within days, we were getting requests from dozens of species asking for human military advisors. Apparently, news of our victory over the Devourers had reached some very important ears, and suddenly everyone wanted to know how humanity had managed to defeat an enemy that had been considered unstoppable. It's ironic, I said to Zara as we watched the latest delegation of alien diplomats arrive at the station. For thousands of years, they've been treating us like we're barely evolved apes, and now they want our help. They're learning what I never forgot, she said, that humans are dangerous precisely because we don't follow the rules. We're unpredictable, illogical, and absolutely refusing to give up when the situation looks hopeless. Is that why you were put in cryosleep, to wait for someone like me? I was put in cryosleep to wait for humanity to remember what it was, she said. Turns out, humanity never forgot. It just needed the right moment to remind everyone else. My official title now is Special Human Liaison, which is a fancy way of saying I'm still a janitor. But now I get to attend meetings and give advice to alien military commanders who used to treat me like furniture. The pay is better, but I still carry a mop. Old habits die hard. Zara decided to stay awake this time. She's been appointed as humanity's official military advisor to the Galactic Council, which means she gets to spend her days explaining to various alien species why human tactics work even when they shouldn't. The secret, she told me during one of our planning sessions, is that humans don't fight fair. We cheat, we improvise, and we refuse to accept that something is impossible. So basically, we're the galaxy's troublemakers. We're the galaxy's problem solvers, she corrected. There's a difference. As for the Devourers, they're gone. Maybe permanently, maybe temporarily. The reality anchor overload scattered them across multiple dimensions, and according to Zara's calculations, it'll take them at least 1,000 years to find their way back to our reality. And when they do, I asked. When they do, humanity will be ready for them, she said confidently. We'll be older, wiser, and probably even more unpredictable than we are now, assuming we don't blow ourselves up first. Oh, we'll probably blow ourselves up several times, she said cheerfully, but we'll get better at it. The funny thing is, I think she's right. Humans have this amazing ability to take the worst possible situation and somehow turn it into an opportunity. We're the species that looked at the vacuum of space and said, you know what, I bet we could live there. We're the species that saw cosmic horror machines and thought, I wonder what would happen if we broke the laws of physics at them. We're troublemakers, problem solvers, and apparently the galaxy's designated crazy people. And you know what? I'm okay with that. Because sometimes, when the universe is ending and the smart people are out of ideas, what you really need is someone stupid enough to think they can fix it. And brother, we humans have stupid covered.